welcome or welcome back to Life on the Franch. Today we're going to be talking about wedding invitations. So, for those of you who don't know, last year I got married in a pandemic wedding, uh, legally, but I'm having my big sacramental wedding, still a pandemic style, this year. So, it's around the time where people are starting to send out invitations. So, I kind of wanted to go over the options that people have in general when inviting people to their wedding and the ways that that's different for weddings happening in the pandemic. So, typically, when you invite people to your wedding, most people go with one guest list. So, you have one list of people who are welcome to come to your event. And if people RSVP no, you don't fill in their seats. You just say, okay, and that whatever the total number of people who respond yes, that's the number of people who are coming to your event. However, other people more recently have started doing uh, rounds of invitations. So, for example, you would put in, say, your first round of invitations, right? And then if you have um, extra space or you pick a different venue, you would have your Plan B list. And these would go out all together. So you have your round A, round B, and there could even be a round C. For pandemic weddings, round invitations make a little bit more sense, although there is a third option, which is what we're using that I'm going to get to in a second. Round invitations give you the opportunity to still group people so that you can follow the typical guidelines of wedding invitation etiquette. So, for example, usually you would invite, if you're inviting one sibling of a family, like that's your relative, so like say a cousin in one family, you would be obligated to invite all of the other cousins within that family. You could also look at it from a generational perspective. Some people have age cutoffs as well, but you would be able to follow whatever you followed for round one, right? So, say that your round one includes the people that you absolutely have to invite, but there's this other group of people, right, that you couldn't quite fit in the first round. But if you invite one of them, you have to invite all of them, and that would put them in the B group, and so on until you get to the last group that you have. Typically, you only go up to 3 because you don't want to send out your first round of invitations so early that things could pop up, and you don't want to send out your last invitation so late that you can't adjust your numbers for your reception hall and for your catering. What's the third option? The third option is what I'm calling rolling invitations. And I have seen some people do this, and this is what we've decided to do. Like in the initial plan, you have your first list. This is the number of people that your venue allows you to have right now. So, obviously, with the pandemic, the standards are always changing. 2 weeks ago, our capacity was at X. Recently, it went up to Y. So, the numbers are growing, right? But we made our guest list with group X in mind, right? Because that's what we had at the time. So we picked out X number of people to go and fill those X number of slots, okay? And as more seats open up, either because people in group X decline to come to our wedding, or because the number of people that we're allowed to have grows, we start filling those empty seats rather than as a whole set, but as the seats open. So it's kind of like a round of invitations, except think of it more like college rolling admissions. So if you want a guest count of, for example, 100 people, and so your initial guest list has 100 people, but let's say that 10 of those people say no initially. As you get the no's in, you can be sending out invitations to fill those 10 slots. So let's say 8 people reply that they definitely want to come, but you still have 2 open seats. So now you invite an additional couple to fill the slots until you get your total number of 100 people. And what makes this different from rounds of invitations, although there are some elements that you can have in it, is that the invitations aren't going out all at the same time. The number of open seats might determine which group you fill it in with. Obviously, if you have one open seat, you can't invite a couple, so you might go to your list of single friends and invite one of them to fit whatever is going to make the 100 people an even 100 people. And then obviously, if the number of uh, your guest list grows by a substantial amount based on the uh, loosening restrictions on guest count by your state or county, then uh, you might look at sending out kind of like a second round, because you have, say, 25 new slots that you didn't have before, and you can invite all of those people at the same time. But you're not waiting necessarily for the 25. You are using the no's as a reason to invite more people. And the reason that we've decided to go with this option is because we had initially envisioned a pretty large traditional Catholic wedding. My family is very traditionally Catholic. It's big. The majority of the attendants were my family. We are very close. We were looking at having originally up to 300 guests. Obviously, that's not going to happen now. So we are limiting our guest count from what it was originally. We decided to do rolling invitations so that we have a better chance of filling these slots than rounds of invitations. Um, because with rounds of invitations, uh, yes, you can save all of the no's to wait for the B group to start, but let's say your B group ends up with some open slots, right? And you've waited so long to send out your B group invitations that you can't fill those seats. So that's kind of why we've decided to go with more of a rolling style of guest list. Other considerations when planning your wedding guest list for a pandemic wedding are considering what your priorities are for what is going to make your wedding the best it can be under the circumstances. It was very important to me that I had cousins in my own generation uh, in my wedding. So I put them in my wedding party. Now, typically, you would probably end, usually there's an age cutoff, right? And everyone below a certain age just isn't invited. And that's what we're doing, with the exception of people who are participating in our wedding ceremony. But thankfully, a lot of the people in our wedding ceremony are in my generation of cousins, so I will be able to still have younger people at the wedding. I'm the oldest in my generation on 2 sides of my family. Another option, if you're looking for ways to cut down on your guest list, one is eliminating kids uh, and doing a 21 plus event. Another could be looking at the how far out you want to extend family invitations to go. Do you want more family there, or do you want more of your friends there? And for me, it was very important to have more of my family there. So obviously, I have a couple friends I'm inviting that are like family friends that are basically family, um, and they're coming and they're my age. But the majority of people who are my friends that are attending are in my bridal party, and the rest of the people are going to be mine and my partner's families. However, going out to a certain point didn't make as much sense to me as going by the people I wanted to see. And this is where I think the largest difference is between a pandemic wedding and a regular wedding. I think in a regular wedding, a lot of family politics come into it. you want to make sure that everybody in the family is happy. So that means that you invite, you know, every single sibling of a certain parent. Or if you invite one of your grandma's cousins, you're inviting all of your grandma's cousins, etc. With the significant reduction from 300 to currently 125, we couldn't even figure out a way to do that generationally because, again, people have big Catholic families, so we would only go out to about here, and a lot of the people that I'm closest with are outside of that, generational line. Or not generational line, but family tree line, the branch. We decided to invite people that met other criteria. So we decided to focus on people who attend events that we've invited them to in the past. Now, if we invited them, we were going to invite them to our regular wedding, but and they probably would have come because a wedding is more of a big deal than, say, like a small get together. But we really wanted to be with the people that have been with us, supporting us in our relationship, and been a part of the growth of our relationship from the beginning. And that means prioritizing some family friends over immediate family. It means that within families, some people drive more to see us, visit us more often than others, and some people, you know, just come to more events, invite us to more events. Um, and we're kind of ignoring the family politic aspect of it to a degree. And I think that was the hardest part for me as a pandemic bride, because as the oldest of two generations, not two generations, the oldest of two sides of my family, part of my role in the family has always been to keep my generation very close, tight knit. Um, so it's really hard for me to not invite everybody um, to the wedding. But the fact of the matter is, I can't invite everybody to the wedding right now. Um, but maybe eventually I can, which is why we're doing these rolling invitations. So we're prioritizing, those people first, but then perhaps family politics is our, get filled in with the second round, or perhaps people that Stan and I have both worked with. Um, those people get invited next. For us, we don't really have a strict like round A, round B. We just have groupings of people, and if that number of seats opens up, we just slide them in, and that invitation or invitations go out. So there isn't a strict second invitation date. And we're kind of hoping that people are going to be understanding of why we're doing it this way, and understanding of our decisions and who was initially invited and who wasn't. But weddings and funerals bring out the absolute worst in people. I think that brides in particular, rarely ever grooms, but brides in particular are often referred to as like bridezillas. And I think that pandemic brides are particularly at risk of being called bridezillas when it comes to things like the guest list. Because you've had to make such tough calls that are tough on you, and then they're tough on the people who are on the receiving end. And I think that not playing by traditional family line rules or generational rules or age rules, uh, you are definitely at risk of playing favorites, being selfish, self-absorbed in who you're inviting. And what I keep telling myself, and what I would tell any pandemic bride out there, is that it's your day. A lot has been taken away from you already. Don't let the pressure of others who can't be understanding enough to realize the difficulty of the situation get you down about your wedding. Because if they take it the wrong way, do you really want them to be there in the first place? I will also note that in our invitations and on our website, one thing that we did that I think is useful is, because the only kids we're inviting are in the wedding or are siblings of the people in the wedding, in our frequently asked questions page on our website, we have "Are the kids invited?" and we put basically we'd rather spend the evening with just you. And also on the invitations themselves, we have listed every person from with that family that's invited. So say it's a parent and a couple and 3 kids. Let's say only the couple is invited. We just put the couple on the RSVP card. So they know it is just them invited, not their kids. And we also have a frequently asked question of, can I bring a guest? And another way we've cut down on the number of people invited is for people who are single or who've significant others I haven't met. We aren't giving them a +1. So that's a way we've cut numbers, and it sucks, but it's what I would rather see people I know than people I don't know. So we have our guests invited, and we said if your card says "and guest," then yes. If not, we'd rather celebrate with just you. If you found this video helpful or informative, give it a thumbs up. If you have any other ideas for ways to narrow down guest lists, what are you guys doing to cut your guest list? How are you handling the invitations? I would love to know in the comment section down below, or any questions that you have or critiques, so that I can think about them when making my final decisions on my invite list. Leave them below, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Subscribe to see more of our content. Bye!